every disease is gaps.
Yeah.
From my point of view.
Yeah.
Every chronic disease is gaps. You need, every disease begins in the gut. GAPS protocol heals the gut. It puts the very roots of your health right.
Hello and welcome to episode 17 of Happy, Healthy, Healed with Atta. Today we were joined by Dr. Natasha McBride, a medical doctor and well-respected author and founder of the GAPS book diet, a diet very close to my heart, which has got me through many painful illnesses and experiences, and very close to Atta's heart, because Atta has been built on conversations around returning back to our innate being. We as humans have an inherent way to heal. And Dr. Natasha is very much behind that feeling and the importance of reconnecting and recharging with nature and our beautiful planet to regain our innate health and inner strength. So we hope you enjoy. We will be joined by Dr. Natasha again very soon, we hope, because we didn't get through half of the questions that we wanted to talk to her about, especially around microbes and the gut and more of the GAPS diet. But we do hope you enjoy. Much love. Welcome, Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride, to our podcast, Happy, Healthy and Healed. We are so grateful for your time. Thank you very much.
I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for your invitation.
Oh, well, we were just chatting off camera actually about our personal journey with GAPS and how it's had such a profound effect on me and now my family's health. And actually, we were just talking to my husband last night, just saying we must stop buying the things that we can't eat and put only the things that they can eat in the house, because I heard you saying it on another podcast. So I was like, we must start living this, like with the whole family, because it's really hard for one to sort of do it without all of us doing
involved,
it. Yeah. So yeah, so we've been having a deep dive into all of your podcasts and everything that you've been speaking about, and actually we do quite a few podcasts with people in the water world as well that talk an awful lot about microbes. And I think it was Isabel Friend that said that we are literally walking aquariums. We're structured water that surround the microbes that live in our body, and we are the fish tank. So I kind of like that analogy to start with. So I would love to, because I was listening to a podcast with Mary Ruddock, I think, is it, that you did, and I absolutely loved the journey that you had in your childhood. And I do think a lot of what we're doing at the moment is we're sort of going back, looking at the past to kind of go forward with our future and with our health and various other things. So I'd love to hear again your childhood story and how wonderful, well, not so wonderful in parts, but how wonderful it turned out.
Well, I grew up in Russia, in the middle of it, in the mountains called Ural Mountains. And nothing in our lives is an accident. Everything that happens in your life has a purpose. You may not understand it or enjoy it at the time, but years later you will look back and you'll realize, oh, that was correct and that piece fits here. You know, and that was absolutely right. And I had to go through that, and I got the wisdom out of that. And it's that wisdom that allowed me to thrive today and to do what I'm doing today. And when I was 18 months old, I was in a crash, and there was a food poisoning there, which I haven't recovered from. And I was just losing weight. I couldn't even stand up, my mother said. So in desperation, and nothing was helping, you know, nobody could help. And in desperation, she wrote a letter to my grandparents, who lived in a small village high up in the mountains. And it was a very traditional society, traditional village, where everybody produced their own food. There were no food shops for hundreds of kilometers around. You know, everybody had to produce their own food. And everybody had a cow, and everybody had sheep and chickens and ducks and geese and gardens and bees. You know, people were completely, and they were working as well, all of these people. So they were completely self-sufficient in that sense. So my grandmother came and picked me up and took me to the village. And my parents, it was quite far away, about 300 kilometers away. So my parents didn't see me for about a year. And next time when they came, they didn't recognize me. There was this healthy toddler, you know, with a chicken leg in my hand. Yeah, so looking back now, I realized recently that my grandmother healed me with a GAPS diet.
Yeah.
They knew it, you know, in their society, they knew it. They knew what foods are healing. They knew what to do for newborn babies, what to do for people with any illness. They knew for what to do for couples who are trying to conceive, for an injured adult, you know. They knew herbs, they knew foods. They were in contact with nature, those people, because they lived in a traditional society. And they were less technocratic, much, much less technocratic than we are today. And the more humanity is becoming technocratic, the more we rely on gadgets and technologies, the more we lose our divine knowledge and skills of living in the real world. Because this world can be seen as two worlds. There is the real world with nature, with animals, birds, soil, you know, gardens, our magnificent planet Earth, with the moon, the stars, the sun, the constellations, you know, the whole thing, which is not man-made. We did not create that real world. It was created by some colossal intelligence. And we human beings belong in that world because we have been created by the same colossal intelligence. And then there is technocratic world created by man. These are our machines, our cities, our houses, our streets, our tarmac, our roads, our gadgets, you know, and we're all very proud of them and we value them above nature. But in nature, in the real world, everything regenerates itself, heals itself, everything produces babies. There is a circle of life. A death of one creature is the beginning of life for many other creatures. And nothing goes to waste in that world. And everything functions on balance and harmony in the real world. Everything's harmonious. There is no chaos there whatsoever. In the technocratic construct, the man-made thing, we take resources out of the real world. We take metals and wood and minerals and water and other resources. We chop them up in our factories, we mix them up together, and we make our technocratic inventions, our machines, our clothing, our cars, our houses, and everything else. And these inventions do not produce babies. They can't regenerate themselves. They can't repair themselves. They all have one way, from the factory to the garbage tip.
Yeah.
As soon as you buy a car, it starts rusting, falling apart. You have to repair it all the time, and eventually it finishes up on the rubbish tip. If you buy a piece of clothing, eventually it turns into rags and finishes up in the same place. So all the technocratic construct does, it takes resources out of the real world and shifts it all in one direction to the garbage tip. And nothing can regenerate, and it's based on chaos, because there is no harmony, there is no balance, it's based on chaos. Technocratic construct has its own philosophy, its own ideology, its own rights and wrongs, and its own education, its own health ideas, everything, you know, its own corporations and agriculture and food and all of them. And majority of us were born in that technocratic construct and grew up in it. We are technocrats.
Yeah.
We can't live without heated houses and clothing and machines. And the more we rely on these man-made inventions, technocratic inventions, the more we lose our divine abilities of living in the real world. And we keep forgetting that we belong in the real world.
Yeah.
We belong in the real world. The problem is that technocratic construct has no ethics. It's based on lack of ethics. That is why we have unethical politics, unethical international organizations, unethical science, unethical education, unethical medicine. Everything just has no ethics at all. There are other values, so-called.
Do you feel like this moment in time, it's such a poignant time? Do you think that because I'm having so many more conversations with people about this sort of stuff, do you think we're on the verge of maybe people waking up to this? Do you think?
Absolutely. Thank you, COVID.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What it's done for us, it woke a lot of people up.
Yeah.
And it showed the whole humanity that nobody's allowed to sit on the fence. You have to choose either that side or this side. You're either with the grand creator or you're with the opposite side. You're going to stay in the technocratic construct and believe in it. Technocratic construct is heading for self-destruction. It's inevitable. And anybody who chooses that side will go with it, basically. But what the real human beings, the real humanity will do, those who have chosen the real world, to function in the real world, what we need to do, we need children. We need lots of children, healthy, functional children, which grow up with nature, which grow up in the real world. And the more we allow them to do that, the less we impose our technocratic beliefs and understandings on our children, the more we allow them to be with nature, with that. Through generations of these children after children after children, human beings will start regaining their skills and their abilities, which we have lost because of technocracy. And generations, through generations, our children and grandchildren will be able to do things which for us technocratic humans are sheer magic. Because this is our birthright, to do those things. And there are people existing today who can do things which are for us just magical.
What sort of things are you thinking of, out of interest?
Spiritual masters, people who can communicate telepathically, who could feel your thoughts. As soon as you thought something, they know it.
Yes. Yeah.
Who could read your mind. People who could do other things, which are, there are people who don't need to eat at all, because they're so in tune with the real world, with the universe, that they get all their nourishment from the pure energy of it, from the ether. There are yogis like that in India, and they have been studied. There are scientific research published.
Yeah.
These people have been studied. They do exist.
Yeah.
Like that. They just reached such a level of spiritual evolution. They don't need to eat anymore or drink anymore. Anything. So that is a huge liberation in itself. And they don't need clothing. There are yogis who live in Himalayas and they can dry wet clothes on themselves in very low temperatures and a terrible, horrible cold wind, on the top of a mountain. They generate so much heat. They don't need clothing, these people. That's another liberation. If you don't need clothing, you don't need a house. You don't need shoes. You don't need protecting yourself from the elements. You can live there in the elements. So these are just simple things that already exist. And there are already human beings who can do these things.
I think it makes you realize how far we've come away. If you think about the people that are living without homes, without warmth, without clothes, without food, you think, goodness,
everything that we think that we
need, the belief system that we've been told, and to be sort of contained in this bubble of like, oh, I can't do without that, is huge, actually, isn't it?
It's a technocratic construct, and it has its own, it's a tyranny. It's inevitable that everything is tyranny. It's tyrannical. Construct, it tyrannizes, and it turns people into slaves, and people degenerate. It takes people only one way, to the same rubbish tip of humanity, to the same garbage tip. It degenerates human beings. Even within my 62 years of existence, I've observed that people are degenerating.
Yeah.
Even what I could do when I was young, when I was a child or when I was a younger person, observing other 20-year-olds or teenagers today, I can see that compared to my generation, they're degenerates.
Yeah.
Many things they cannot do. My mother, who's 85 years old, answered that question definitely. Within her 85 years old, she has observed a definite degeneration. So the more we live in a technocratic construct, the more we believe in it, the more we sink into it, the more human beings lose their human abilities. The more they become technocrats and they belong in that construct. And that construct is heading for self-destruction. And we need to understand that.
Yeah.
So we need to turn around and we need to go back into the real world.
Need to regenerate.
Absolutely.
Regenerate and reconnect.
And reconnect, yeah.
Reconnect and regenerate humanity. That means that we can't live in cities. We have to live in the nature. We have to have small holding. We have to walk barefoot on real soil and real nature, and work in the gardens and produce our food and touch the soil with our hands. Because the majority of real knowledge in the real world is acquired through feelings, not through words. What is the definition of a feeling? Many people don't understand what a feeling is. And in a technocratic construct, we are brought up through the whole so-called education system to not trust our feelings. Only trust logic. only trust the words. A feeling is a colossal amount of information downloaded into you in one swoop, in a split second. The amount of information that you get through a feeling, you need 2 weeks of somebody talking and explaining it to you to cover that amount of information.
Yeah. Sometimes 4 weeks.
Exactly, sometimes 4 weeks. But through a feeling, you just get it.
The knowing, isn't it?
In a split second. That's why human babies don't talk for 2 years. They are protected from language because language has been invented to lie, to be able to lie to each other.
Yes.
By feeling, directly receiving feelings and directly receiving thoughts, because babies are telepathic, they receive our thoughts immediately. As soon as you had a thought in your head, your baby got it. The same with animals. Animals receive our thoughts directly. That's why animals can't lie. You cannot lie to them. The same with babies. The babies don't lie, and you cannot lie to babies because they get your feelings. They get your thoughts directly, and they are protected from language. They are protected from logic. They are protected from the brain activities, from this monkey thing, up here.
Yeah,
I know that well.
They're protected from that because in the first 2 years of life, they have to download enormous amount of information from the real world. They download the whole creation, how the whole world has been created in a form of feelings. And in order to do that, they need to be immersed in the real world to download that information. It means that a baby, when it's lying and it can't even turn over yet, needs to see the sky, the trees above it, the birds flying in the sky, the clouds, the moon, the stars, the sun. Because all of these things, they download enormous amount of information into the baby's brain about how the world's been created and how the world functions. Children, they put 2 and 2 together. In a technocratic construct, what does a baby see?
Feeling.
Well, at the moment, I'd say it's more like an iPad, actually.
Oh, God.
Exactly. They see a white ceiling.
Yeah.
And the baby will think, what is the sense in this white ceiling? What's the information? What am I not getting from this? And then somebody sticks a plastic rattle into the face of that baby. And the baby would be looking at that thing and thinking, what does it
What's the
tell
purpose
me about how the world's been created? What does it tell me about the whole creation? This plastic senseless thing.
Yeah, it's noisy.
Yeah.
That's right, exactly.
I don't like noise.
Then they might see a corner of the bed or a curtain or something else like that. And when the baby starts crawling, the baby has to crawl on the grass because there are insects in the grass. Insects convey a huge amount of information to the baby because everything they do is purposeful. No bug, no ant, no little insect is running in the grass without a purpose. It's all very purposeful, and they communicate with each other through feelings, through telepathy. And the baby gets all that. It gets the information and examines them and lets them crawl on its hands, and it gets things in the grass, and it tastes things from the grass. That's how human beings were all natural herbalists. Because when they were a few months old and they were crawling, they would taste every herb and every grass in their environment.
Yes.
And through feelings and taste and smell, they would get what does this herb convey, what energy is, and what does it do? What's its place in the universe? What its place in the whole creation? So this person, then if this child went through that stage when they were babies, they don't need a herbalist course.
Well, you think about, because when I did a herbalist course, but you think about, so the first thing that we were taught was to put the herb in our mouth, sit quietly and tell us what it did for us, the colours, the thoughts, the feelings, because you think about the initial people that ever started any of this before we had books and TV, and there must have been a way that they knew that something was going to be the medicine. It's like we've lost again that connection. It's that reconnect.
Absolutely, through feelings, because they grew up in that society. They grew up on nature, with nature. They were crawling in the grass when they were babies, when they were little toddlers, and they got all that information directly. Nobody had to teach them. They knew it right from the beginning. It's later on, as people were becoming more and more removed from nature, more and more technocratic, they started losing that opportunity, and then the parents and grandparents had to teach them that this herb does this and this herb, because they grew up crawling and tasting. We need to reverse all of this. We need to go back, and we need to allow our babies and children to grow up that way. The child has to be surrounded by animals and by birds. There should be cats and there should be dogs and hopefully farm animals around that they observe and they touch and they smell and, you know, and then they taste the milk, and all of that connects. You see, all of that provides pieces of one great big puzzle, which is the universe and the whole of creation. And by the age of 5, and definitely by the age of 7, the child growing up in that environment will download the whole of creation. They have that knowledge. Nobody will be able to bamboozle them anymore. They become real human beings, not technocrats. That's the purpose. That's what our young parents need to do now.
Yeah.
That is our big task, to take our children out of technocracy, protect them from technocracy. No gadgets, no mobile phones, none of that nonsense, no TV, no computers, no iPads for these children until they're adults, until they've downloaded far more important information than all of this technocratic nonsense. Okay, so I was lucky enough to spend my childhood from the age of 18 months in that environment. I was crawling in the mud, and there were chickens, and my grandparents had bees, and they had all the animals, and it was a farm, and all the kids in the village run around, you know, together, all sorts of ages, and the parents had no idea where they are.
Yeah.
The whole village looked after them. The whole village knew, you know, somebody saw them by the river, or somebody saw them, you know, collecting berries in the mountains, or with the horses, or somewhere else. And they will all tell each other, because as they work around, the adults, they would say, oh, they're there, they're all right, and oh, they're there, you know. And we would usually descend on someone's house when we're hungry, eat everything there is in the house, and then move on. And it was normal. You know?
See, that's what we're missing so much with my children, and they're, you know, they're still young. Well, they're very young. I just, that community feeling, it's disappeared. Like we don't have that. Like, so we moved to the country, we bought some, we'd started growing, got chickens, blah, blah, blah. But the whole undertaking was so huge alone.
Of course.
And and it just became overwhelming. And I think it's such a shame that, you know, and even
we need to recreate these communities. We need to create them anew. It's a big undertaking. We have to turn our backs to technocratic construct.
Yeah.
Start moving towards the real world, back into the real world, because that's where we become real human beings. And a human being is a divine creature. It is a spirit, first and foremost. It's a God. It's a God, which has every ability that the creator, the grand creator had and has. And the grand creator has been patiently waiting for us to explore this technocratic nonsense and then understand what it is.
And crack on.
To see it for what it is, and then come back.
Yeah. What a massive lesson we're all having.
It's a massive lesson. And I say thank you, COVID, because that was a cutoff point that woke many people up.
Yeah.
People who believed, their governments believed, you know, democracy, that democracy, you know, believed all of those sort of things. And there are still people who believe it and think that if only we had better people in the government, if only we had a different president.
Yeah, exactly.
If only we had sort of different laws. Technocratic construct is absolutely rotten to the core.
Yeah.
The whole premise that it's made on is corrupt. It has to be dropped like a ton of bricks. It cannot be healed. It cannot be repaired. It is just wrong from the beginning.
Yes. So maybe we should talk about how to reconnect and recharge everybody.
Yes. Well, we could
especially with the GAPS diet.
GAPS diet. Let's come back to the GAPS diet.
And maybe start from birth, seeing as we are sharing how we feel that there needs to be this new start and how this affects babies. Listening to a previous podcast, I found it so fascinating the way that you shared all of your knowledge about birth and how that really affects the baby, and going forward with the bacteria and the fungi, all those lovely things, and the first diets that they should be having. That's really where we need to be going back to as well. If we're going to start fresh, we need to start there, don't we, with our newborn?
Absolutely. Within technocratic construct, there is technocratic food that majority of people are eating. And because our bodies don't belong in technocracy, our bodies belong in the real world, that food is entirely inappropriate for the real human body. That is why everybody's sick. And that is why people are producing sick children. We have epidemics of all sorts of illnesses in our children and babies, and they're growing. The proportions in a technocratic construct is self-destructing. That's where it's going, and it's the children that are getting devoured by that construct, by that machine. So the first thing that everybody has to do in order to regain their health is to start eating real food, not technocratic food. Technocratic food is grown by industrial corporations on an industrial scale, by industrial agriculture, on dead soils, the soils that have been destroyed. There's no life in those soils. And all the nutrition for these plants come from chemicals.
Yeah.
So they are nutritionally depleted, and they are full of chemicals, full of toxic chemicals, because everything in technocracy works with one big instrument, very powerful instrument called money. Everything is grown for money, for the sake of money, and it's the energy that drives everything in a technocratic construct. If you take two people and ask them to grow carrots, and if you ask one person to grow carrots for best health and another person to grow carrots for maximum profit, these people will go about growing carrots very differently. And they will be very different carrots.
Yes.
Very, very different. That's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
So the bread that's produced in the technocratic construct is poison. The bread that you can produce in the real world properly can be nourishing, can be good. The same with meat, the same with milk, the same with eggs, the same with vegetables, the same with seeds and nuts and everything else. So we have to first and foremost look for real food. And that means we cannot buy food in supermarkets anymore.
No.
We have there are no half measures. We have to abandon supermarkets, because everything on a supermarket shelf comes from industrial agriculture. It has poor nutritional value. It's full of chemicals. Organic label has been corrupted in the last 15 years. You cannot trust it for a second. A lot of so-called organic produce is grown with hydroponics. The roots are sitting in this
In a room.
sort of liquid that is oozing along, full of chemicals, and they call that organic. These plants have never seen the soil. All your lettuces, your tomatoes, your berries, majority of vegetables, it all come from hydroponics. And a lot of so-called organic, because about 15, 20 years ago, the big agriculture wanted a piece of pie of the organic sector, because organic sector was growing, and they control all agricultural policies of Western governments, because they appoint those governments in the first place. And they've changed all the regulations around organics, and now the whole sector has been completely and utterly corrupted. So you cannot trust organic label in a supermarket. What we have to do, we have to find real farmers, visit their farms, see how they grow the food, see where the animals are and the birds are. Look in the eye of that farmer. Can you trust the human being? Because we humans have feelings.
Yeah, we know.
can feel the person. Can you trust this person or not? And are there any bags of chemicals lying about? Are there refrigerators full of steroids and antibiotics around for the animals? Are the animals on pasture? Because all animals and birds must be on pasture.
Yeah.
And it should be a pasture with natural pasture, with more than 60 varieties of grasses and herbs growing in it. And the animals need to be kept moving, to leave the pasture to rest for 3-4 months, to recover after the animal impact. Chickens, if they're on pasture, they eat a lot of grasses and herbs. They find their own meat in the pasture, their own worms and grubs and insects. And as a result, they produce the best eggs for you. Where do you think the color comes in an egg yolk of a chicken?
Well, I think it's recently somebody said that there was an egg company that was sticking turmeric in their chicken's food to make
a British company, wasn't it?
It's making their yolks yellower, and you're like, good.
That's actually better than what they do.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Conventionally, the real chicken who's on pasture eats a lot of grasses and herbs. And the carotenoids from those grasses and herbs color the egg yolk yellow, orangey yellow. It's vitamin A. It will give you fantastic health. Chickens who are grown in the industrial agriculture, they eat food where they add a yellow dye to their feed. That's why the egg yolks are yellow.
Yeah.
So which egg is going to give you good health? Which egg is the real egg? That's a technocratic egg, and that's a real egg.
Yeah.
And adding turmeric is a little bit better than synthetic dyes. And of course, that's a marketing point for them, but it is still only halfway through, maybe, because we need to look at what the other ingredients are. Chickens need to be roaming free. If they're under the sunlight, if they're free, running around the pasture, then there will be vitamin D in their eggs and their meat, because the sunshine vitamin D, is produced in animals when we are in the sun, when we're outside. So cows, sheep, goats, pigs, and other animals need to be on pasture. Pigs need to live in the forest. That is the best environment for them, because they root, they dig, the pigs, and they eat a lot of grubs and insects and worms and mushrooms and vegetation, and then they have no parasites and no illnesses, and their meat and fat is full of vitamin D and lots of other good things for us. They become very, very nourishing. The same with cows. When they're on pasture, in the sunlight, there's plenty of vitamin D in their cream and their butter and their milk, and in the meat too. And the same with all the other animals. But the problem is, industrial agriculture, the technocratic agriculture, makes its largest profit on growing plants. One man today can serve hundreds of acres, thousands of acres, with all the machinery, chemicals, the hybridized seeds, because scientists worked it all out for them. Here's the hybridized seed, and this seed has already been pelleted, covered in chemicals, so it's not a seed, separate seed, it's pellets that they scatter, or drill into the soil. And you spray this on day 5, and you spray that on day 15, and you spray this on this day, and it works.
And they get subsidized, don't they? They get subsidized.
They get subsidized. All their profit comes from governments. That's right. All their profit comes from governments. And so you've got this neat rows with not a weed inside, of all this greenery, and they get their yield and they get their profit. And very soon, you won't even need that one man to serve several thousands of acres. Everything's going robotized. All these machines very soon robots will be driving on the tractors and combine harvesters and other machinery on the fields. So they're getting rid of farmers because they're not needed anymore. Everything will be robotized and laboratory grown. That's the plan in the technocratic construct. They're going deep into
technocracy. That's the plan. It's not going to happen. That's the plan.
Well, it might happen for them. I'll be knocking on Dr. Natasha's door, going, "Can you let me in?"
It depends on who makes what choices. You see, a lot of farmers in Britain at the moment are making the choices to take the government subsidies and not farm anymore.
Yeah, but
they're being paid not to farm, and they're being paid much more than what they will get for all their crops that they grow.
Yeah.
So it's profitable and easy for industrial agriculture to grow plant matter. But when it comes to meat, milk, and eggs, it's unprofitable, it's a headache, and it's difficult for them. Because animals and birds just don't comply with the technocratic model. They take them off pasture, they lock them up in prisons, they grow monocultures on them, they plow their pastures, and they grow all this plant matter on their pastures. They grow the grain and the soya, and then they feed that overproduced grain and overproduced soya to these poor animals in the prisons.
Yeah.
Grain and soya are not the right food for animals or birds. They get sick from them. They need grass. They need sunshine. They need to be on pasture to be healthy and well and happy. They're miserable. They all get sick. They die young. They develop cancers by the age of 2 or 3.
And then we eat it.
And they're infected. That's why they kill them young and early before they develop cancers. So industrial animal husbandry is just been a pain for them and unprofitable. Besides, all the people who rule the corporate world, the small elite, so-called elite that is ruling that world, they've invested billions into synthetic meat, synthetic milk, and synthetic eggs. These things are already in supermarkets. Yeah. Some people already buy them and think, great, technocratic populations are starting to enjoy these things. Even synthetic fish. You can even order a 3D printed medium rare steak.
See,
for yourself. And very soon, the supermarkets are saying that we will be selling these kits for people that you can take home and you can grow your own meat in the kit.
Really?
Yes. Yes, that's the plan. That's what.
Not in my world.
Exactly, that's what they're working on. So they're very happy to get rid of animal husbandry altogether, and they're working very hard on getting rid of it. because in the industrial model, in the technocratic construct, it doesn't work. That is why, because meat, milk, and eggs do not work for them, but growing lots of plants works for them very well and it's profitable, they have launched a huge propaganda through the Western governments for veganism and vegetarianism.
Yeah.
It makes perfect business sense for them to
Yeah.
make the whole planet vegan and vegetarian. And because they pay very skilled and very clever professional psychologists to design the propaganda, it presses on ignorance, it presses on emotions, and it presses on religious beliefs and political beliefs. You know, a lot of young people fall for it.
Yeah, we worked on it for a while.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I fell for it for a little while.
Exactly. Young people who love animals, who love birds, you know, they show their own industrial prisons where the animals and birds are kept in appalling conditions and treated appallingly. They film that in their own factories and they show it to people as a proof that they should stop eating meat and stop eating milk and stop eating eggs.
Actually,
They will never film my farm. They will
Yeah.
never film an
Yeah.
organic, a
Yeah.
real organic, regenerative farm.
Yeah,
Full
happy
of happy,
farm.
healthy animals and
Yeah.
birds. You know, they will never do that because it's all propaganda. The whole media has been constructed in the technocratic construct. The whole media is specifically launched and designed, all of it, as a brainwashing tool.
Actually,
Oh.
Dr. Natasha, we were chatting earlier, weren't we, about milk?
Yes.
And it was one of because we drink raw milk at home. My kids enjoy it. Obviously, you try and get it from a good place, but it's the one thing that you can't get through, isn't it? It's like
I can't understand. If I was pregnant, if I'd had a baby recently and I had milk still, a baby cow wanted to come over and drink my milk. That would be a bit weird. So why would I want to go and drink milk from another animal that has produced her milk for her baby? How is that going to benefit me? And why should we be doing it? What is the benefit in that? And why should we be doing it? I can't get my head around it, Dr. Natasha.
This is one of those cleverly constructed psychological propaganda conundrums.
Come on then, pick my brain apart.
Professional psychologists. Yes, absolutely. Humanity has been consuming animal milk for thousands of years. We adapted to it. It is good for us. As long as it is real milk from real animals, not hybridized Holstein Friesian beasts, which are able to produce 3 times more milk than a real cow can produce. And these cows are Frankensteins. They cannot survive on pasture. They cannot survive on what a real cow eats. They need soy and they need grain and they need lots of other things. And by the age of 3, they're usually infertile and have cancer. So they live very short lives, those artificial Frankenstein cows, and they give Frankenstein milk. Vast majority of milk products that are in our supermarkets come from Frankenstein cows. Frankenstein dairy. That is why I have a stack full of scientific papers to show that milk causes every disease in the world, you know, including cancer, infertility, and all sorts of things. That is why vets saying that your cats must not drink milk and your dogs must not drink milk, because all the research has been done with Frankenstein milk. Yeah. My dog and my cows drink our goat's milk and cow's milk every day, and they're healthy for it, beautiful for it. So cows give a lot of milk, and we human beings are adapted to drinking it, and particularly when it's fermented. It's good for us. It is beautiful. For example, you know, a simple example is a lot of people are becoming more and more allergic to salicylates and oxalates in vegetables and plant matter. This is substances in the plant matter which are difficult to digest. Many of them absorb undigested, and they damage your kidneys, and they form kidney stones and liver stones, and they cause arthritis and various allergies in people. If you consume high-fat dairy, particularly fermented dairy, it will neutralize all those oxalates. So these two things come together in the evolution of humanity: the dairy and growing all those oxalate-rich vegetables. So these sort of things are, you know, and there's a lot of propaganda and a lot of ideas about it. A lot of vegans and vegetarians also are confused about the killing aspect of it. They say, you know, it's wrong to kill And there is a plan now which was tried to, the globalists tried to launch in Oregon first, and Oregon farmers said no, thank God for that, where they pronounce that animals are sentient beings and that they cannot be killed, and you cannot take eggs from the chickens, and you cannot take milk from the cows. And the only animal that people can eat, if it's their pet and their pet died, then they can eat. That's the whole regulation about sentient beings that they're trying to push through.
Wow.
On unsuspecting populations of the world. You see, when you work on a farm and when you have your own farm and you slaughter your own animals, all of that nonsense just flies out of your head. You understand that when you come to someone's home, what is the right thing to do? To follow the rules of that home, of the owner of that home, of the host, or to start dictating your own rules to that household?
Well, interestingly, we've got a mutual friend that went to do she went to visit a tribe. I think it was in Peru, and she was vegetarian at the time, and they offered her fish. And she said, "Oh no, I'm so sorry, I'm vegetarian." And I think the tribe guy, whatever you would call him, sorry, laughed for probably about 3 or 4 hours because he thought it was the most insane thing that you wouldn't take that offering and eat that, because it's
almost insulting as well,
yeah,
isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. We human beings come into on this planet for a short period of time, a short life, from birth to death. We are guests here. We did not design this planet. We did not design the circle of life here. We did not design nature. We did not design any of this. Somebody else did. And somebody else is the host here, and somebody else is the owner of this place. So what right do we have to come here and start dictating what's right and what's wrong? Everything eats everything in nature. And when one creature dies, it gives life and beginning to many, many other lives. And there is nothing vegetarian in nature. You know that plants are carnivorous.
Yes.
Yeah, there is new research now to show that plants are carnivorous.
Mushroom as well, I think. Yeah.
Exactly, mushrooms and any plant, vegetables, any grasses, trees.
Yeah.
What they do, they send sugars into the hair roots. These sugars attract microbes. Microbes come inside the cells of the root. And then the cell inside the root switches on this thing like a blender. This whizzz, blenderizes the whole microbial community and then sucks it in. So microbes are their meat. So plants, trees, and grasses are carnivorous. They eat meat. They eat microbes in that sense. And everything. And when you die, the tree will eat you. There have been occasions when roots of the trees in cemeteries were found to be in the shape of a body that was buried under that tree. Exactly, the tree ate the body completely, and every gardener, good gardener, will tell you that the best feed for your plants in the garden is fish meal and blood meal and meat, and these sort of things, animal products. So everything on this planet, in the whole circle of life, eats everything. And on my organic farm, my chickens, my turkeys, my pigs and cows and goats, they're having a whale of a life. They're lazing in the sun, they're grazing, they're playing, they do what they want. They have no duties, no responsibilities. And you know who's working very hard on the farm?
Yeah. I bet you are.
We are, the humans, that's right. We run around like blue bottles and we work hard to serve them and to make sure that they are happy and healthy and protected and fed correctly and everything else. So when it's time for them to pay back, they know it.
Yeah.
They know it. And we slaughter our own cockerels on the farm, for example, and I had many vegans who come here. Once they go through that slaughter process, something clicks, something connects in these people, and they're plucking away perfectly happily, that bird, and many started eating meat on our farm. Children need to connect to this process from a very young age, so nobody can bamboozle them later on with some psychologist designed propaganda, which serves somebody's commercial interests. That's a propaganda which is designed by global corporations to serve their business interests. That's all there is to it. And they're given lies because everything in technocratic construct is based on lies. There are no ethics. Everything's based on lies. They're lying on every front, everywhere. And one of the biggest lies that the vegans and vegetarians are given, that you're saving the planet and you're kind to animals and you're on the healthiest diet in the world. All three statements are a blatant lie.
And also the fact that they're encouraged to believe that they're helping the soil and they're helping the earth, and knowing that even
That's the opposite.
we're not even supporting the ground that we walk on, you know,
The spiritual connection.
Exactly.
that connection, yeah, with the soil.
The only way to feed large numbers of vegetarians and vegans on our planet is through industrial agriculture.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that as an organic farmer. Having animals and birds on an organic farm is easy and takes very little time. If you provide them with pasture, you provide them with the right environment and right food, you're busy 1 hour in the morning when you're milking and releasing them, and 1 hour in the evening when you're feeding them and putting them to bed. The rest of the day is free. You can even hold a full-time job.
Yeah.
But when it comes to growing vegetables and crops on an organic farm, that's where the hard labor is. That's 24-hour job. The
Don't we
weed
know
is
it?
endless. And you know, the yield is completely unpredictable.
Yeah.
You can do everything by the book, your carrots just don't grow.
I fed the majority of the rabbits, deers, insects.
And
There you go.
you gave up so much that you just let the chickens just go over the whole lot in the end, because it was become
I think
I'd
soul
I'd
destroying.
rather eat the eggs. I think.
Nature doesn't want us to grow vegetables.
No.
It doesn't want us to grow vegetables. And every year is different. You know, one year you have too much rain or too much sun or something else happens. And one year you get cabbages, but no carrots and no beetroot. Another year you get beetroot, but no carrots and no cabbages. So the yield is completely unpredictable. You cannot build a business model on that at all. And you cannot feed even one vegetarian for a year out of a private organic garden. I'm telling you this as an organic farmer.
Yeah.
You cannot. In order to have reliable supply of all that plant matter for the large population of vegetarians and vegans, you need industrial agriculture with their hybrids, their chemicals, their pellets, their practices, and they're eating chemicals. So it's not healthy for them at all. And in fact, you know, every vegetarian and vegan I've ever met, they're sick. They're very ill, these people. And you can't survive because large-scale vegetarianism and veganism has to rely on industrial arable agriculture. Industrial arable agriculture is the biggest destructive force on our planet. They're destroying our planet.
Yeah.
They're killing soils, they're polluting groundwaters, they're flooding rivers and lakes. They're just doing a terrible destruction to our planet. So vegetarians and vegans are destroying the planet because they're relying on industrial arable agriculture. That's the only way to produce enough vegetable matter for them to live on.
Yeah.
It is not healthy for them. I have a book that I've written. It's called Vegetarianism Explained. This book.
The green one.
It's not very big, it's not very thick, it's got nice pictures. And I've written it specifically for young people because it's young people who fall for this propaganda. So if you know anybody who wants to become a vegetarian or a vegan, give them this book.
I can see it in my kids. Like I can see, like because they don't have that connection. I mean, my dad was a meat trader, so I grew up walking through Smithfield Market and seeing the carcasses and sort of, I mean, it wasn't complete connection because it wasn't a farm, but it was normalized for me. But I can see my kids being quite detached from that. Like I can see the emotional aspect of killing an animal because they're like, you know, at that young age, you're like, well, that's a chicken, you know, the chicken that's outside. And they're like, what? I'm eating a chicken. So
you have to slaughter them yourself, and children need to participate very early.
Yeah.
We do our slaughtering of cockerels very humanely. We have our own, almost a ritual, a procedure for it. We do it with love. And the cockerels have to be slaughtered on the farm because our chickens breed every summer. We get lots of chickens who become broody. They want to be mamas. And they hatch their babies, and we have lots of little families walking about where there's a mama chicken and little, you know, brood of babies running behind her. And usually in every clutch of chicks, there's half and half, boys and girls. Yeah. When they've grown up, there are far too many males, far too many cockerels, roosters, you know, we call them roosters. Yeah, we call them cockerels. Because a healthy chicken family is a harem. There has to be one male and about, you know, minimum 5 females, preferably more like 7 or 9 females per one cockerel. for one rooster. And then he becomes a good, caring husband. He loves his chickens. He protects them. He doesn't hurt them. You know, they look proud. You know, they walk around. They look good, those chickens. So there are far too many males as a result when they've all grown up. They can't form their harems, all of them. And they form gangs and they just run around. Then they catch whatever stray chicken they can catch and they kill chickens. So they break the balance, the harmony on the farm. They create this environment which is unhealthy.
Yeah.
On the farm. Chickens suffer badly. So they have to go in the land of freezer. You know, so we catch them in the evening, usually when they're all in the chicken house, ready to go to sleep. So we just walk in with a big crate and we pick them up and put them in the crate. So they sleep in that box in the crate together with the rest of their family. And in the morning, we take that crate out to our plucking station. We take one cockerel at a time. Somebody holds him to your chest. Everybody strokes that bird. Everybody talks to him and we thank the bird. We thank the bird for everything. For their beautiful singing, for all the babies they gave us, for making our farm alive, you know, for all sorts of things, and thank them for giving their life to sustain ours. And when that happens, when everybody strokes and talks to this bird, the bird calms down and relaxes. You can see that. And then you slaughter the bird. They consent. They understand our thoughts. They understand our feelings. They understand that this is a big circle of life. I understand it and I'm submitting to it. You know, when you do it like that, and when a human being goes through that whole process of slaughtering that bird, bleeding, and then plucking, and then cleaning that bird, and when we're plucking and cleaning, you know, all the other chickens are around trying to peck that bird, trying to get all the bits and pieces. You know, they have none of our human ideas.
No,
You know, none of that.
they're over it.
Exactly. When human beings go through the whole process, and particularly they see the behavior of other chickens and other animals, you know, all of our human misconceptions and nonsense just flies out of your head.
Yeah.
You can
It's quite beautiful, actually, if you think about it. And I find it quite sad that we just, like we were talking the other day about supermarkets and how actually, even if you walk into one, it feels just, it just feels horrible at the moment. Like it's that energy that you're getting from the food that just has been through, like you said, this.
Absolutely, because food is information.
Yeah.
Every mouthful of food you chew and swallow, you're putting information in your body. You're putting vibrations, because everything vibrates in this world. And there are different frequencies of vibration. What kind of information do you buy in a supermarket in the form of food? You get information of abuse, fear, grief, disease, suffering. How is that information going to give you good health? When you eat food from an organic farm where animals were healthy, happy, were slaughtered correctly and fed correctly, you're getting information of love and joy. And only energy of love can give you good health and healing. Food is information. We have to understand that. That is why everybody's sick in a modern civilized society, because everybody's shopping in supermarkets.
Yeah. I think it's quite unfortunate, actually, because I think where we've got this movement of veganism and vegetarianism, it's shut down so many amazing butchers. Because my dad, obviously, he used to be a meat trader, and he used to say that local farms would then have people that would come out and help them cull if they didn't want to do it themselves. But these days, you don't have those mobile, I can't remember what you call them, people that
slaughterhouse, mobile slaughterhouses.
It's like you then have to transport them into these horrible places, or it's just because we're not supporting.
That is a technocratic construct. Construct. Everything in that construct is wrong. Everything's corrupt and wrong, and it just works around money.
Yeah.
The only sense that it is with that energy of money, that big cog that everything runs around. We have to create new reality outside the technocratic construct. There are sovereign communities being formed all over the world. There is one big one existing in Italy already, another big one existing here, another big one existing in America. We just need to find those. They have their own jurisdictions and their own rules and laws. And these are established jurisdictions. It's just people don't know about them yet.
Yeah.
And within those jurisdictions, you can throw out all those rules of technocratic construct. You set up your own abattoir. You have your own slaughterer. You slaughter on your own farm. There are different regulations and different rules. We have to create new humanity outside the technocratic construct, because we, the real human beings, don't fit in the technocratic construct.
Mm.
Don't fit in it because it's just too broken.
We're with you. We're with you all the way.
And within that new society and new environment, that's where we need to also be re-educating our children from
Absolutely. New education,
with new education, yeah.
new education, new birth, new medicine, new everything.
Yeah.
New festivals, new music. We have to write new songs.
Yes.
We have to write our own music, because the songs that are in the technocratic construct, they're all specifically designed to drag people into the technocratic construct.
Yeah, and money, yeah,
We've
again.
heard that a lot recently, actually.
Yeah,
Exactly. And every musician with any talent is immediately put on drugs for free.
Yeah.
So they cannot create, to take away their creative powers. So they create what they're ordered to create
Yeah.
for the technocratic construct. We
Yeah.
can't sing their songs. We
Yeah.
can't play their music. We have to shun all of that. We have to write our own songs, our own music, our own dances, our own festivals, our own everything.
Sounds fun.
yeah.
It's a great fun. We're creating new humanity,
Create the new world.
a new world, and we're creating our
Yeah.
own reality, because we human beings are divine. We are gods.
Mm.
We are supposed to be creators. Technocratic construct turns us into slaves.
Yeah.
Who wants to be a slave?
It's amazing, though, how many people are finding each other through this new way of being, and or not new way, it's probably an old way, but like, do you know, the friends that we're making, and it's growing. I can see it. I can see it happening naturally. You know, it's not like you've got to lift yourself up and put yourself somewhere. It's growing and it's evolving and it's changing if you decide, like you said, if you make that choice. So yeah,
It is speeding up. It's energy. It's a
Yeah.
new wave of energy, and
Yeah.
it just
yeah, you can
catches up
feel it,
everywhere.
can't you?
Mm.
Yeah. I feel like we've had such an amazing conversation, but we haven't talked anything about gaps.
Let's talk about gaps, please, 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 please.
I
Because
don't think we've got time left now for the gaps.
Yes, you have.
Gaps is in my books, you know, and it's all over the internet. And there are 2 books. That's my first gaps book. It focuses on the brain. That's it.
yes,
You know, I've written that in 2004. It's a second edition that came out later. And this one focuses on the functions of the brain, how the brain gets ill. So all psychiatric illnesses, all learning disabilities, any problems with the brain, even if it is just lapses of memory or slight anxiety or emotional instability or anything else like that, please read that book.
yes,
This book talks about the rest of the body, gut and physiology syndrome. Both abbreviate to the same GAPS, GAPS. This one's quite a bit thicker, came out in 2020, and it talks about every physical disease. Every disease is GAPS.
yeah,
From my point of view.
yeah,
Every chronic disease is GAPS. You need every disease begins in the gut. GAPS protocol heals the gut. It puts the very roots of your health right. Once you fix the roots, then the tree will grow.
Mm.
Then your body will fix everything else, no matter how far away from the gut it might be. Because your body is a microbial community. There is nothing microbe-free in your body. There are far more microbes in you than human cells.
yes,
Far more. You've got microbes in your blood, in your lungs, in your heart, in your abdominal cavity, in your brain, in your eyes, on your skin, everywhere. And the biggest community, the center of it all, the hub of it all, is in the digestive system, the majority of them, because that's where you put your food. Microbes love food, and they gather around food, you know?
Yeah.
So that's where you put your food. And food is the most powerful influence on any microbial community in nature. You change their food supply, everything changes within hours.
Mm.
Because microbes proliferate very quickly. They produce babies very, very fast. So if you changed your food, you've changed the whole microbial community literally within hours. Certain microbes will disappear, other microbes will appear in there out of nowhere, and the whole community will change. And that means that food is the most powerful medicine for human beings, because our bodies are a microbial community. The most powerful. There's nothing more powerful, nothing that comes even close to the effects of food. And we eat several times a day.
Yes.
At least 3 times, sometimes more often, depending on that. GAPS diet has been designed specifically to put your gut flora and the rest of your microbial community into the right balance, into harmony. to make it harmonious with a healthy, clever, intelligent, fully functional human being. That's what the GAPS diet will do for you.
Yes.
Without doing that with your body, you cannot leave the technocratic construct, because it works on lies and deceit and manipulation. And if your body is already made out of poor quality materials because you're eating badly, and your brain is fogged up, and you can't think straight, and you can't feel properly, and you're numbed, how are you supposed to find your way in the world?
Being tired and exhausted and
Exactly how
ill and not feeling
they
well.
want us to be.
Exactly. It is our birthright to be healthy, happy, joyful, creative, being creators, creating our own reality. That's our birthright. And now humanity came to the point when we can reclaim that. It's starting. It started already.
Can I ask you one more question?
Yes, of course.
No.
I really would love to know, because Atta was actually, I don't know if you know much about Atta, but we created Atta in the lockdown. That's where it started for us. We met on protests and doing things that we shouldn't be doing. And we started by having a deep dive into water. That was one of our biggest wake-up calls, with the water we was drinking and how to get the right water and what is structured water, all those questions. So tell us, I'd love to know, please, what your takes on maybe the right water to go with the diet that you recommend, because it's such another fundamental part of life.
Absolutely.
So what is your wisdom with water that you can share, please?
We want water from nature. We want spring water. Spring water, because water cleanses itself by vortexing, going through a vortex. And if you observe any river or stream in the mountains in particular, water vortexes.
All the time.
All the time it goes through these vortexes. And that way it cleanses, it removes radiation, it removes toxic metals, it removes pesticides, it removes agricultural chemicals, it removes everything. And it energizes itself and it structures itself in a honeycomb structure, because the whole universe is structured as honeycomb. I have bees, and I have,
Yes.
they're amazing. They're absolutely amazing. Yeah. So the whole universe is a honeycomb structure, and real healthy water is a honeycomb structure. So it needs to vortex. And those springs come very, very deep, from very, very deep. They created, that's the water that's been created anew in the core of our planet. Our planet is alive. It's a living creature. And it's growing.
Yeah, it's our blood.
It's growing. That's right. It's getting bigger and bigger all the time. It's growing because the ether that we're surrounded by, that is now research from physics, from real physics. In a technocratic construct, that research is forbidden. And that information is forbidden, because that's a tyrannical construct. It just controls everything. The reality is there are lots of good, talented physicists in the world who are getting out of there, and they want real science. They want to be real scientists, and they're telling us that there is ether, that this space between people, between objects, is not empty. It's not just there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's God. Ether is God.
It's divine.
And it permeates us. It permeates everything, and the particles in ether, it's energy and particle interchange. It's the same, one and the same. They vibrate 1,000,000 times faster than the speed of light. You see, Einstein postulated that speed of light, that's it, that's the ceiling, that nothing can go faster than that, and that's it. Yeah. And you're not allowed to research it.
No more questions.
No more questions. Exactly.
How could you question Albert Einstein?
Exactly. Well, Einstein has been moved to America for a reason, and very comfortable there somehow, and became very wealthy. And
Funny that.
These things don't happen by accident.
Yeah.
So so he was the one to put this kind of lid on the whole scientific research. We have ether, and that ether is grabbed by the earth, and it's vortex and turned into a toroid field. The toroid field is when energy goes in and out this way, and then again, like an apple.
Is that implosion? Is that what Zaya was talking about? Is that
That's a toroid field, it's called. Yeah.
That's
why. And it comes in from one pole, North Pole, and then comes
to the south.
the pole. Yeah. So the whole planet is alive, and it's constant. It's creative. It's a creator. It's constantly creating new matter. It turns that ether into matter. Our brains can do the same. Our thoughts are toroid fields. So every creative project begins from a thought. We first have to think it thoroughly through, and then we start creating it. So we are thinkers. We need to think.
And think very carefully.
Yes, because we
Think
can
carefully.
create, I suppose.
You can create whatever you like.
Exactly. We need to encourage our children to thinking and teach them to think, our children, and give them space to think. When you see that the child is deep in thought, never interrupt. Let the child finish the thought process. And then when he's away, you're there, you're waiting.
Yeah.
Wait. And
Stop
when he's
daydreaming.
finished the thought process, he'll turn around and he'll look at you and say, what? You know?
Yeah.
Yes. So it's important when a human being is thinking. That is the most important thing human beings do, is think. Nobody should be interrupted when they're deep in thought. They have to be allowed.
We've had such a big thing about that recently, haven't
Yeah.
we?
There's a point. Do you not think there's a point though with, this is Claire and I, with thinking and overthinking?
So coming back to water, the salt that, like Himalayan crystal salt and other mine salt that we get in the mines, not in the sea, comes from the earth's core. It is a newly created salt. That is a proper crystal salt, that's proper crystal, and it's clean. It's not contaminated. That's the best salt. Sea salt is all contaminated and processed. That is why I don't recommend people buying sea salt. Buy salt from mines, unprocessed rock salt from the mines, because that came from the heart of our planet.
Yes.
Yeah.
The same with spring water. It comes out of the heart of our planet. This is newly created water. And as it comes out of the core, it vortexes. And it comes out through the crust. So the spring water is the best.
Yeah.
And the water in mountain springs and mountain rivers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
I've got so many, but I don't know if it flows with you one day. I would love to go on a deep dive to the microbes and
yes,
how they transform and evolve, and that fascinates me so much. So
we can talk again.
Yeah, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Please. We know you've got lots of animals,
and we've got loads of questions.
Sure.
It was absolutely, it was a pleasure.
We could actually say that Dr. Natasha is our new Einstein, couldn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, this whole conversation has really inspired me to go home and make some changes.
That's good.
So thank you very much.
Yeah, let's go and create new humanity, girls.
Yes, absolutely. We're on it.
And it's your